I'd like to welcome everyone to the webinar series of the Cybersecurity and Information Systems Information Analysis Center, CSIAC. Today's presentation is entitled DoD Modeling and Simulation Catalog 2018 Update. My name is Steve Warzala. I'm the CSIAC Outreach Manager. A few administrative notes before we begin. All phones have been muted except for the presenters. Questions may be asked at any time during the presentation by utilizing the chat function. Time permitting, your questions will be answered at the end of the session. Today's briefing slides will be posted on our website within a few days. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank our sponsor, the Defense Technical Information Center, DTIC. The funding that DTIC provides enables CSIAC to conduct these webinars. I have a few announcements related to modeling and simulation activities. I'd like to mention the upcoming Inter-Service Industry Training, Simulation, and Education Conference, ITSEC. This will be taking place during the last week in November. CSIAC and the Defense Modeling and Simulation Coordination Office, DMSCO, will both have exhibits at this event. So if you're planning on attending ITSEC, we'd love to have you swing by and visit us while we're there. In addition, we're also jointly working together on a medical modeling and simulation focused edition of the CSIAC Journal, which will be published in the near future. Now I'd like to introduce our presenters for today's webinar. First, we'll hear from Rachel Orzechowski, the Program Manager for Simvention's Modeling Simulation Management Technology Group. They support the development for the Enterprise Metacard Builder Resource Tool, referred to as Ember, or the Ember portal. Simventions also provides help desk support for both the M&S Catalog and Ember, outreach efforts, and other demos as needed. Tammy McClellan is the Program Director for Information Systems Technology at the University of Central Florida's Institute for Simulation Training. She and her team oversee the development for the M&S Catalog search and contribute functions, as well as operating and hosting the physical servers supporting the M&S Catalog and the Ember portal. I'll now turn the presentation over to Rachel. Good afternoon. The floor is now yours.
Good afternoon, Steve. Again, thank you, Steve, for hosting this webinar today. My name is Rachel Orzechowski. As you mentioned, I am an M&S Program Manager with Simventions, and we support the development for the Enterprise Metacard Builder Resource Tool, referred to as Ember, or the Ember portal, and provide help desk support for both the M&S Catalog and Ember by responding to end-user inquiries, supporting outreach efforts, and other demonstrations as needed. Joining me today is Tammy McClellan. Tammy McClellan is the Program Director for Information Systems Technology at UCF's Institute for Simulation and Training. She and her team oversee the development for the M&S Catalog Discovery Interface and System-to-System Contribute functions, and also operate and host the physical servers supporting the M&S Catalog and the Ember portal. On behalf of the Defense Modeling and Simulation Office, we plan to share with you some of the exciting new efforts that have been underway in 2018 for the Defense M&S Catalog and Ember. We will close out the webinar with a brief Q&A session and a final summary review. We wanted to take this time to provide a quick refresher on the history of the Defense M&S Catalog. The DoD has outlined a strategic vision and goals for M&S to promote the sharing of tools, data, and information across the DoD enterprise. This strategy seeks to make M&S data products, which we will call assets or M&S resources, discoverable and available for reuse to senior leaders, managers, and developers with an authorized user account. In aligning with this strategy, the M&S Community of Interest was formed to provide a collaborative technical forum to advise and influence the DoD enterprise on technical issues involving M&S data, metadata, and data-related tools and IT services. Working groups were formed, and the M&S Community of Interest Defense Metadata Schema was developed to standardize the metadata captured about models, simulations, simulators, documents, and other M&S resource types for purposes of easily sharing common information across the community. The Defense M&S Catalog was then established by the Defense Modeling and Simulation Coordination Office to support the visibility component of this strategic vision and to provide an avenue for M&S organizations to make resources available for reuse. These points support the two primary objectives that make up the catalog's concept of operations, which are enterprise discovery and contribution. Enterprise discovery offers tools to locate resources. The contribution side provides organizations options for sharing and follows our philosophy for local control and management over resources. Having organizations make contributions to the catalog helps to make it a valuable tool for users to successfully discover M&S resources for reuse and repurposing. Following various prototypes, the current instantiation of the M&S Catalog was introduced in 2014 to establish visibility into the M&S resources across the DoD enterprise. The catalog, as we call it, today holds about 10,000 assets provided from over 70 organizations, and through its robust search engine allows people to find, assess, and reuse what is being produced throughout the DoD. The catalog also supports federated searches, expanding its reach into other data repositories. In short, the catalog has access to thousands of assets and resources, such as models, simulations, tools, and more, which can be discovered, reused, and repurposed, saving DoD organizations time and eliminating spending money to develop what is already available and can be used as is or modified for reuse. The IBM Watson Explorer product is used to support the Enterprise Discovery interface. A custom interface was designed to support modeling and simulation and to offer a search experience very similar to other popular search engines. The catalog is also comprised of a web service architecture uniquely designed to support the electronic publishing of M&S Metacards into the catalog. Using XML, or Extensible Markup Language, and a common data schema, the M&S Community of Interest Defense Metadata Specification, to pass the data from one system to the other, the human-in-the-loop effort is reduced, and there are instantly multiple methods to contribute and manage resources that are shared to the community for enterprise discovery. To assist organizations in contributing resources, Ember was developed. Ember provides for local control and management of resources, allowing an organization to choose what they publish for enterprise discovery. The M&S Catalog, which contains only unclassified data, is still protected. Access is limited to those with a DoD-approved PKI certificate meeting the assurance level of medium hardware, high assurance, or equivalent that represents a DoD CAC or PIV. Authorized users of the Defense M&S Catalog include DoD employees and contractors and federal employees from specified agencies and associated government contractors. More details about credentialing and access requirements are available on the catalog's website at https://mnscatalog.misco.mil. Everyone requesting access goes through the centralized registration process. In this process, contact data is captured and credentials are identified for account approval. Once approved, the registrant receives a confirmation email from the catalog and has access to the catalog and/or Ember, depending on which tools were selected on the registration form. It is important to understand, as you use the catalog, that all the information displayed within the catalog is unclassified. The data on the metacards, as we call the records, can describe classified materials or resources, but the text that describes the resource and any supporting files that are uploaded into the metacard record must be unclassified. Although files can be a resource, in addition to metacards, it is important to note that actual models are not resources available within the catalog. There are two primary ways to contribute resources for enterprise discovery to the M&S Catalog by using the system-to-system web service established. You may use Ember or your own organization's repository or registry system. In both cases, you maintain local control and management and choose what you publish to the M&S Catalog. Ember is an acronym which stands for Enterprise Metacard Builder Resource. Ember is a tool developed to assist organizations in creating metacards and tracking them. Ember is the tool through which M&S Catalog holdings are updated, removed when no longer functional, and populated with new data. Ember is divided up into secure partitions, with each organization having a dedicated partition for its own use. Organizations can store their resources in Ember and can choose to publish those records to the catalog for discovery by M&S communities. Records in the catalog can also be unpublished through Ember, updated, and then republished to the catalog. Ember, in short, provides the mechanism to keep the catalog data up to date, as well as serving as a local catalog. Alternatively, organizations who already have an established system for tracking M&S assets can continue using their own system. This method would require some programming by the organization to export compliant metacards and send them electronically to the M&S catalog through the system-to-system publishing method. The organization still remains in control of which records they choose to publish. If you are interested in contributing M&S resources to the M&S catalog, you may send an email to helpdesk@mscatalog.msco.mil, and the catalog team will be happy to assist you in getting started with Ember or setting up publishing for your existing system. Tammy will now share highlights of the discovery side of the M&S catalog.
Thank you, Rachel. Our goal for the catalog has always been to support the discovery, reuse, and interoperability of modeling and simulation resources for the Defense M&S community and others involved in the design and development of modeling and simulation. In 2018, we have focused on improving our existing discovery options for M&S resources, both in terms of content and features. This year, the catalog specifically expanded its scope to include external content suggested by the community. We continue to encourage the submission of individual metacards that describe M&S assets, but we've also recognized that useful information may be stored elsewhere, or there could be limited resources that exist at this time to create metacards for all M&S assets belonging to an organization. Organizations who wish to contribute to the catalog, what we refer to as source providers, can now submit metacards and suggest websites and repositories to the catalog to remotely index and include in the searchable collection. We're presently indexing documents that were submitted to ITSIC that date back to 1966, the Journal of Defense Modeling and Simulation, which dates to 2004, the Simulation Journal that dates back to 1963, and the CSIAC website that includes standards and papers and presentations from workshops going back to 1997. In addition, it includes any of their current group activity that they have going on for standards being established. The DIMSCO website and VVNA Recommended Practices Guide is also included in the searchable content. Also, in an effort to meet our goal, the IBM Watson Content Analytics product, referred to as the Advanced Edition, was purchased this year. This additional toolset augments the existing capabilities of Watson that's presently being used for discovery. We are approaching this as an experimental effort to determine how content analytics can enhance the discovery process and improve the search and interface options we presently offer. And we'll be exploring how the advanced features of the product's content miner interface may help the community as well. And we're going to discuss this experimental approach over the next several slides. Here is a screen cap of the current search interface for the catalog. Not much of this is changing in terms of our experiment that we're working on, but I'd like to draw your attention to two areas: the search box and the outer columns located on the left and right side of the page. The search box accepts keywords or the selection of a phrase that those words are found in from the Type Ahead drop-down that appears as you begin to type. The search will then take that text that's been entered and expand to find matching words such as acronyms and their spelled out version that may be in the system's dictionary, and it will also look for derivatives of those words that contain the same root word, such as run, running, etc. The word, though, in some combination must exist within the underlying information the catalog has indexed. With content analytics, we can do even more to train the engine to find synonymous topics. The outer panes that you see here are where the metrics and visual analytics are displayed in real time. These sections serve as filters for users to refine the results of their search, and we're aiming to use content analytics to develop new filters and offer other categorization of the information held in the catalog. Before discussing what the team is doing specifically, let's briefly discuss why the catalog team is exploring content analytics. This all essentially boils down to the users that we support and the data that we curate. As the name implies, the Defense Modeling and Simulation Catalog supports the defense modeling and simulation community. This covers a broad range of perspectives from acquisition, analysis, experimentation, intelligence, test and evaluation, along with training. Our users want different things out of the holdings that we have. Further, our users can sometimes use different terms for the same topic, which means keyword searching is not sufficient. We need to understand the meaning of what is being sought so we can truly assist our users in locating the information they are seeking. The metacards that have been published to the catalog follow the M&S of Interest Discovery Metadata Specification. This schema was a vital step towards asset identification and standardization and intentionally does not capture everything known about an asset. The same fields are used to collect descriptive information for all resource types, meaning what is asked of models is the same that is asked of simulations and data. While this facilitates the collection, it can be limiting when users are seeking more detail and specificity regarding asset attributes. The existing Metacard collection also contains inherited data that was not originally collected in accordance with the schema, and therefore that data that was brought in was placed in bulk into the description field of the Metacard. We're therefore seeking to mine that blob of text in the description field to pull out the concept and meaning of what's being represented. Last, we have made a lot of progress in adding new content with the support of several organizations, making it a priority to submit information in the way of metacards to the M&S catalog. The growth of new information can be slow, however, as it's limited to when the organizations have the funding to enter those cards. We're therefore sought to expand the catalog's collection this year, as I previously mentioned, to include external sites so that we can now introduce new content and provide a broader range of information pertinent to M&S. All this is to say that we're taking an experimental approach to provide our users in the Defense M&S community with a more robust capability to discover assets. Through the use of content analytics, we're aiming to offer alternative views of our M&S collection without the underlying data structure having to change. To best take advantage of the content analysis engine that has been added to our toolset this year, it must be guided or trained. The team has been underway with the development of a modeling and simulation Yuma pipeline as a first step in building a high-level representation of the M&S domain. Yuma stands for Unstructured Information Management Architecture and is essentially a set of parsing rules and annotators to tag data during the indexing process. Version 1.0 of an outline or a taxonomy for M&S has been established, and the team is working to develop these applicable rules. These rules, in turn, will process the content that's found in the description field and other pertinent areas of metacards and the external content that we index. The results of these efforts will better support a user's ability to filter search results and hone in on categorical topics where there are presently no enumerated fields within the published metacards or the content that we have available to use as a refinement. We also sometimes see that there are terms searched for that produce no results, but in actuality there are results. There's just not results using the same exact keyword that someone typed. That is the world of DoD and M&S, where there are many, many acronyms and synonymous terms. So we are taking steps now to expand upon the Defense M&S glossary that we're using as the starting point to add additional synonyms to help tag data by and teach Watson about the vocabulary of the modeling and simulation community, which will ultimately improve the engine's ability to perform query expansion and present more applicable search results to our users. To give you a better idea of what our initial steps are to train Watson, let's look at what goes into creating a Yuma pipeline. First, as we just reviewed, we're essentially establishing a compilation of parsing rules. This means we're looking for specific words in the text in combination with other words, maybe in the title or in some other section that we can tag and categorize that record, that web page, that PDF file while we're doing the indexing. The categories therefore represent the tiers of the M&S taxonomy that we're defining, and they will serve as a refinement option to help users reduce their search results. Because of this initial focus being on establishment of filters, the taxonomy that we're creating at this time is not intended to be a view of all things definable within the modeling and simulation domain, but rather it's on the primary ways that one might wish to locate M&S assets. The filters, of course, will all be based on a user's perspective, so as not to get bogged down. At this time, we're focusing with the lens of the training community before expanding to other areas. Let's look at model type as an example. Model type is not presently a field in any of the data that we have. If model type is to be a refinement that we want users to have available as a filter, then we must define it programmatically and identify the words or phrases that reflect the different types of models, such as physical, logical, computer, or combination, and there could be many other words as well to include in this. And then for each type, we then need to look for the potential terms that one might use that are synonymous or analogous to that type, should the actual words not be in the text. Then, as the information is indexed, it's annotated to not only apply to that type, but to then also apply to the overall category called model type. Filtering then by model type, we can select to view, say, logical models, and it would return results that discuss analytical models, even though there's no field for model type or no words for logical model that may have been found in the text. As a result of our efforts so far, we've been able to create several new dynamic filters. This screen cap depicts some of the various filters that are under development that will soon be available. Take a look at the left-hand pane and the right side. You'll see the first filter allows a user to distinguish where the results were found. Either they were in the published Metacard set that was sent to the catalog, or it's in the external website content that we have indexed. We're also working on rule sets for simulation environment, architecture, application domain, as shown on the left-hand side. All of these filters, of course, will change based on, of course, what you've searched for, and many others that we're underway with in version 1.0 of the taxonomy. On the right pane, you'll see that we have started to identify entities, and this reflects the people, places, and the organizations that are identified to be involved with the records that have been returned in the search results set. As previously mentioned, we're doing some initial exploration of the content miner interface that came included in the purchase of the content analytics product from IBM Watson. We hope to identify any potential use that it may offer as a deep dive assessment of our holdings. As seen in the figure set provided by IBM, it depicts all the various methods for mining that allow for pivot points or ways to view the data in the index collection. The steps that we're presently taking is to build the M&S Yuma pipeline to feed into these views and then offer an additional angle to filter the data by and hone in on a particular sampling of results. As you can kind of see from all of the different views of this content miner interface, it's very sophisticated, so we're taking baby steps and peeling back the layers of what this technology can do to help provide additional functionality to the Defense M&S community. Okay, as we shared before, we're now going to transition from the discovery side of the catalog and talk about Ember. So I'm going to turn this back over to Rachel, who will share that information with you about the changes and enhancements that we've made this past year.
Thank you, Tammy. As you can see, searching in the M&S catalog is simple, fast, and provides discovery to thousands of M&S resources, both within the catalog and in federated sites. The integration of an M&S Yuma pipeline and the content miner interface expand the already powerful capabilities of the M&S catalog. We are pleased to report that the ability to manage the records contained within the contribution portion of the M&S catalog, Ember, have been enhanced as well. The Defense M&S Catalog Users Group is a group of M&S practitioners that meets quarterly to provide feedback to DEMSCO to improve the Defense M&S Catalog. The group is open to all M&S practitioners and stakeholders. Members of the Users Group expressed a need to improve the mechanism to manage their resources within the Ember tool. Their goal was to reduce the time and effort required to contribute new records to the catalog and perform curation of records currently provided to the Defense M&S Catalog. In response to this request, the Ember Advanced Search capability was released in October of this year. The foundation of Ember's Advanced Search is a new filter capability. Users can create custom filters to refine the records presented them and can perform actions on those records from one location. It is important to understand the terminology utilized by the Advanced Search feature. In this context, a filter is comprised of one or more criteria joined by AND statements. It is possible to use multiple filters to refine search results. Multiple filters are joined by OR statements. We define criteria as categories of information about or contained within a Metacard. Users can select from 10 different criteria to create custom filters. Available criteria include the creation date of the record, whether or not the record has been published to the Defense M&S Catalog, and people or organizations who have been designated as a point of contact for the record. As I mentioned previously, our intent was to provide users a mechanism to search for a specific subset of their records and then perform actions on those records from the same location within the site. 6 of the most utilized actions in Ember were incorporated into the Advanced Search capability. Users can export their refined results to a spreadsheet, publish or unpublish records to the Defense M&S Catalog, transfer ownership of a record to another Ember user, update the points of contact for multiple records, or delete records. One important note regarding the Advanced Search capability is that it still employs all Ember access control restrictions. A user's search results will not contain records that they do not have permission to view. A user cannot perform actions on records above their permission levels. For instance, a user who's been granted access to view a record in Ember is not allowed to delete the record. Only the record owner has that permission. If the user attempted to delete the record that they did not own using the Advanced Search delete action, they would be prevented from doing so. We're pleased to provide this new capability to enhance users' abilities to manage their M&S resources and contribute information to the Defense M&S Catalog for enterprise discovery and reuse. The M&S Catalog is a valuable repository which stores thousands of M&S assets created by many different practitioners across the DoD. Supporting the DoD goals, the holdings of the catalog promote visibility and reuse of resources throughout the DoD. Innovations in content analytics and management of records continue to improve the functionality of the tool. We encourage you to register and start using the catalog today. At this time, we'd like to thank you for attending the webinar session today. We've provided some additional information regarding registration for the catalog or signing up for the next meeting of the Defense M&S Catalog Users Group.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, no, I was just going to thank you, Rachel and Tammy, for your presentation. Appreciate the appreciate the info. So we do have there's a question from one of our attendees asking about the types of tools available. Indicates that he didn't see any physics-based computational models like a computational fluid dynamics type of software. So is that accurate? Are there no CFD type of software tools in there? And if not, would there be any plan or intention of adding a model of that nature?
This is Tammy. Thank you, Douglas, for sharing that feedback with us. As I mentioned, this is 1.0 of the taxonomy. It's currently being shared around a group of other M&S subject matter experts to add additional comments and feedback like what you just provided for expanding the types. I will share this with them. It's probably just an oversight as part of our initial list. There's no reason not to include it. We're just had a starting point, and that's where we're going. So if you have other feedback or you'd like to participate in helping to expand that, then we'd welcome additional input from you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. So I'm curious with your experiment using Watson and other activities I've been looking at where they're machine learning type of activities. It seems like the key element in those type of activities is the training data set. So, and usually it's like the larger the data set, the better. So I'm curious, how does that element factor into this experiment that you're doing with Watson? Is size an issue here, or is it you may have a more controlled data set, so that may not be a factor? But I'm just curious about that issue.
Good question. Honestly, in terms of size, as part of our testing and training, we have to kind of scale it back because the different websites that we're indexing, those repositories, if you will, along with our metacards, have a different reflection or connotation of how people have written that information. So our rule sets have to be a little different of how we interpret it. So the large set is great for allowing users to find resources, but we kind of have to break things down into chunks to better interpret the data that we're seeing to write the rules more direct, if you will, for the different areas.
So is it kind of a function where people maybe define things differently? Is that factor into the search process, or?
For example, if we're looking at papers that were presented at ITSIC, they could be covering a broad range of topics inside of a single paper. So that doesn't mean that paper is only about one particular model just because we saw computational model or we saw the physics-based, as Doug just mentioned in there. So we don't want to categorize it as only reflective of a particular model or simulation when we know that it's broader than that. I hope that answers your question. Where a Metacard that someone may have submitted, they've already defined that the Metacard is describing a model, but they may not have selected certain fields that tell us what type of model. So we're trying to glean from the descriptive text what they did say about it, what the attributes are that we need to pull out.
And in that case, could it have multiple connections to the different areas?
Well, it could reflect, obviously, if it's a simulation, what framework architecture it works within, and so it can have relevance to other filter types, but we would not have categorized a Metacard that discussed a model as being a simulation, just because we saw that it mentioned some other words within the simulation context.
Oh, okay, good. Thanks. Appreciate that. So I'm curious. You talked about contributing resources and source providers. Can you describe that process? Does anybody that submits something, does it automatically get included into the catalog, or is there some type of a screening process or approval that things have to go through? I'm just wondering how that how that piece of the puzzle works.
Rachel, would you like to discuss the process in Ember?
Sure, I can do that. So as you mentioned, Steve, so you mentioned becoming a source provider. So in order to contribute information to the Defense M&S Catalog through the Ember tool or through another system-to-system transfer, you would need to register as a source provider. You do that through the Defense M&S Catalog interface. So as a registered user of the catalog, you would then go create a new source provider request. And so you would describe your organization, who the point of contacts might be, and then that request is vetted by system administrators. Once that's been approved, then your organization is now a designated source provider for the Defense M&S Catalog. The organization will need to select authorized representatives who are allowed to publish information to the catalog from Ember for the organization. So for instance, you may have 5 to 10 people within your organization who are creating Metacards, but only one person has authority to publish them to the Defense M&S Catalog on behalf of your organization. Okay.
And so now once something is published into the catalog, can anybody access the tools that are published? Or is there any kind of restrictions or limitations to the tools that are in the catalog? How does that work? Is it there for everybody to use?
So again, this is Rachel. The purpose of the catalog, of course, is enterprise discovery. So if you have been able to register for an account with the catalog, meaning that you have a DoD approved PKI certificate that meets the requirements as we went through earlier, and are a registered user, the intent is that once information has been published to the catalog, it is available for discovery to anyone who has an account in the catalog. The opposite side of that would be in the Ember tool, where organizations can maintain local control and management of anything they create in Ember, and those resources are not available to all Ember registered users unless an organization chooses to make them available by publishing them to the Defense M&S Catalog.
Okay, that's what I was interested in, whether everything in the catalog was open to everybody, or if there were particular things that maybe an organization wanted to not make visible to everybody for whatever reason. So that clarifies that question for me. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Let's see. Anybody else? I don't see any other questions online right now. I think I've ran through the things that kind of caught my attention during the presentation. So, unless Tammy or Rachel, do you have any concluding remarks you'd like to add at this time?
Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well,
and Steve, I would just follow that up by, I know the slides will be made available, but we really do welcome participation in our users group that provides feedback to the changes and enhancements that may be possible for the catalog and for Ember. And so that information, as well as about how to register for both of the tools, is included on that last slide in our slide deck. And so we'd highly encourage anyone who has the ability to access the site to go register and start discovering information.
Okay, appreciate that. And I'll just mention, if anybody has any questions later on, maybe it's not hitting you right now, but after we sign off, you may think of something, or tomorrow something pops into your mind. If you have any questions, you can send us a message here at info@csiac.org, and we can vector it to Tammy and Rachel to get some clarification on that and share with our community. So, like I said, if you do have questions after the fact, feel free to contact us with your inquiry. So. I'd like to, thank both Tammy and Rachel for their time and sharing the information with us on the work they're doing with the Defense Modeling and Simulation Catalog. It's a valuable resource. I'd encourage everybody to try to take advantage of it. One of the things we do with the here at CSIAC is we try to promote use of available resources. We try to stay away from the duplication of effort. Don't try to reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. And so, like I said, take a look at that catalog. See if there's information in there that can support your needs. And you may be surprised at what you find in there. So. I'd like to thank everybody again for attending and the presenters, and hope you have a good day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.